About to go live recovery report with our guest from FP&L. Very excited about today's broadcast being the 50th. Mr. Baldwyn English with FP&L joins us. I hope you stick through the entire episode, about 20, 30 minutes. About to start.
What kind of advice do you have to homeowners?
Practicing that preparedness. Starting the conversation now is always going to be a benefit to any association out there.
And welcome to Recovery Report Live. We have a special episode today. Today marks our 50th episode. I'm Dan Odess, president of GlobalPro, where we manage your risk to recovery. We have helped thousands of community association and business owners recover from loss and damage, and managing more than $1 billion in damages. And we want to make sure that you have the information you need to better operate your business and your community. And that's what today is about, is making sure that you have the information you need as we head into storm season. It's going to be an active year. All the predictions have increased, and there's already a 70% chance, as of the last reporting I saw before we started the show, of actual Anna forming in the Atlantic. So all eyes are on the Atlantic, first named storm. The actual official start of storm season is not until June 1st. However, they have started reporting on the tropics as of May 15th and tracking these things with the anticipation that it's going to be an active season because of the warm waters and the other conditions in the environment that lead us to believe, as experts, that there is going to be an intensification this year as it relates to the number of named storms, the amount of occurrences, and potentially even those storms that come on shore. And those are the ones that we want to make sure that you're ready for. Obviously, right now, if you're paying attention to the news in any way whatsoever in the United States, you're seeing fires, whether they're caused by arson or naturally occurring. You're seeing flooding. You're seeing major hailstorms, tremendous amount of tornadoes. There's so many things to report on. Loss and damage is something you always want to make sure that you're prepared for. There's major changes happening in the legislature, whether as it relates to insurance reform. We talked about in the last few episodes. Last episode, I went through details for our Florida viewers about all the legislative changes that should get signed into law as soon as the governor has sent these bills, reviews them, signs them. A lot of it, it may impact what insurance you get, your access to it. But we're hearing that even though some of the legislation that was proposed early on in the session did not make its way into the bill, that these insurance companies actually got the Department of Insurance to approve changes to their forms that reflect the same changes that did not get the votes necessary to add them into the Senate or House bills. So while they didn't get it there, they got it somewhere else, and it really has, it has us all a little bit on edge as it relates to advocates for the consumer and making sure that they have the information or are aware of the products that they're buying. We want to make sure that you look for these things in your policy. There's changes as it relates to how they're going to pay you for your roofs, what they're going to insure you for, and what you're actually going to pay for it. So again, rates continue to creep upward. The products are covering less. And if they even provide the coverage, it's usually on a minimal basis. Deductibles are increasing for water claims and different things like that. But you got to look closely at these policies to make sure that it's included in there or it's being proposed as from your broker or agent. So before you bind coverage, you know what questions to ask, you know what you need, what information you have. That's why we're talking about it here. We want to make sure you have this information so you can use it to either avoid the situation or better plan for it. So because if you're not going to get the recovery from insurance, you need to make sure that you have it somewhere in reserves. And with the economy and the cost of construction and the labor and material shortages that are being reported, it's really important that you prepare more so than ever for the event of one of these major disasters or issues occurring. Even if it doesn't directly impact you and you're planning to do either improvements to your business, your property, or to your community association, all these things are going to impact you. And with the extreme rise in the cost of insurance that we've seen for many community association businesses, whether it's from your general liability to your D&O to your property insurance, again, we have to be much better at our budgeting. We got to be much better at our preparation. We got to take all these things into consideration. And we've been tracking a lot of these major events that are occurring. And we're anticipating that they're, again, going to continue to impact these things as we saw things such as the shutdown of the oil pipeline. All these things will impact your recovery because a lot of your products are either utilize or need petroleum or oil or gasoline. It's for some part of it, whether it's the manufacturing of it to the distribution of it, it all impacts that. And so when you're recovering on your losses or you're planning and preparing in the event that something may occur, look closely at your insurance, look closely at what's going on in the economy, and make sure that you're budgeting properly for it, and to ensure that your business is there tomorrow and that your community association doesn't assess, is not going to be upside down, or hopefully has secured some sort of line, credit line with some local bank in the event that there may be a loss, so that when your insurance companies are responding to your claims, remember, these things take time. You're prepared for these things. You have access to cash. You have access to the resources you need in order to better recover for that. It's a lot to unwrap. There's a lot going on, whether it's the economy, whether it's the shortages in labors and materials, whether it's, again, named storm potential in the Atlantic already, or the major disasters that are occurring in the Gulf State area, whether it's Texas, Alabama, Louisiana. All these things, again, these economies are interlinked. They're connected in various different ways. So really important things to make sure you keep an eye on, track it. Again, we are a resource for you, so let us know if there's anything that we can do in helping your preparation. But to help us all in preparing for this storm season, we have a special guest here today for our 50th episode. I'm very excited to have this individual on, this professional that is certainly a pillar in our community, very active in our community. We had the opportunity to meet him recently at a local chamber event, and got to know him. And I think he has a tremendous amount of information that he can help us with in preparing for this storm season. And without further ado, I want to bring our guest on. Mr. Baldwyn English, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here. So
you have an extensive title. I know you're in charge of the External Affairs Manager for Florida Power and Light, but why don't you talk to us a little bit about FP&L, your position there, and about the size and operation of FP&L. I think people should get an appreciation for it to understand, as we get into the discussion about preparation, what you guys are dealing with and what it takes to actually be prepared for this storm season.
Certainly. And I would like to clarify that I am External Affairs Manager for Florida Power and Light. I am one of many across the state. So the lady that's in charge is Pam Roush, our Vice President out of our headquarters up in Juno Beach. And I work down here in the Miami-Dade County area primarily. So what I do primarily from day to day is I help to develop and form relationships with our local elected officials in the county and the city level, and just act as a resource to both engage them in educating on what's happening at FPL, as well as to help facilitate agreements that we may have with the various municipalities in which we serve. And really the fun part of my job is being involved in these chambers, as you said, where we met a few weeks back, and also really engaging in the nonprofit community and helping identify opportunities for us to be helpful and to give back.
Awesome. And so tell us about FP&L and the operations. I know one statistics, 11 million residents right across Florida that you guys are responsible for to deliver power. What's the size of FP&L as far as employees and what,
Sure.
what is, because as we talk about the preparation, I want, to put it in context of what the size of the operation you are trying to manage, or FP&L is trying to manage in order to get the power back on. Talk to us a little bit about that, about the type of company FP&L is and the services it's providing.
Sure. Well, FPL is the largest electricity provider in the state of Florida. I think by kilowatts, we're the largest in the country in terms of energy produced. We have about just shy of 9,000 employees throughout our territory just here in Florida. We service a little bit more than half the residents of the state, primarily most of South Florida, all up along the East Coast. Then we kind of jump over to the Panhandle, where we have most of that territory as well. By far, the majority of our employee base consists of both, I'd say, engineers and customer service representatives. So we are definitely always poised to respond on after severe storms, as well as even on a blue sky day where something may go wrong. But we do have a very strong online or reliability rate, so we're very proud of that as well.
No, I recently purchased a new property, and I dealt with FP&L to transition over. I mean, it's much easier than it used to be. The technology that you guys have now on the online platform is fantastic.
Yes.
It was a breeze compared to what it used to be. So definitely major advances there on FP&L side. I mentioned it earlier in the intro about this storm out in obviously Atlantic. Is FP&L ready for this storm season?
So FPL is always in storm mode, or at least storm preparation mode, right? So, the storm season starts in June, and we're certainly at a heightened sensitivity to storms during that time throughout November. But as soon as the storm season ends, we're back into kind of recapping how the season went, and then preparing, lessons learned and best practices for the next year, because every year is different. Every storm is different. I'll tell you, one of the coolest things that we do to prepare is we have a dry storm run where we take about a week and we simulate an actual week of a storm coming in. I mean, when I say simulate, it is real. When you go to our storm center, you have these huge screens that are playing. It looks like you're watching CNN or Fox or MSNBC with reports and weather updates, and they're showing, and it's all stuff that we've just developed internally to prepare to act as if we're going through a storm. So we get the daily emails, we have the reports of what's out, what's any challenges that we may be having, and we just kind of fine tune or refine our processes to make sure that our communications are on point, that that we've covered all our bases in terms of what we need to do to be able to get the power back on, which of course is our primary objective. So are we ready for storm season? Yes, we're always ready for storm season, but every storm season is different.
No, for sure. And it's actually a good point. What makes this storm season different for FP&L, and how has it possibly prepared differently this year as opposed to prior years? Obviously, let's say what it is, the pandemic.
Sure.
Because I want to talk about some tips for some of our business owner community associations, because
Sure.
obviously. So how has FP&L in its preparations differed this year than any other prior year?
Yeah, so last year we had 30 named storms, and in the middle of the pandemic, it was challenging. Grateful we didn't have any major storms that adversely impacted us. But I'll compare last year to kind of going into this year. So prior to last year, I would say we have a storm situation. Like I said, we have 9,000 employees. We'll easily bring in 10,000 workers from other states through our cooperative agreements. We'll bring in 10,000 workers and deploy them on these massive sites, and we're putting many in sleepers that hold maybe 6, 8, 9 team members in like a portable sleeping or arrangement type situation. And all of that had to change last year because of COVID, right? So we had to get arrangements or range opportunities to deploy our staging sites at smaller venues, where we can space out the crew, so that just in case an infection happened, you would have a little bit more redundancy in terms of being able to respond. So we really are, to a large extent, carrying a lot of that forward this year, and things may change, over the next couple of weeks as we continue to get more vaccinations and as we get more information coming from the CDC, but we are still deploying that small scale model this year. And to be quite frank, and we would potentially have less workers. So last year we were prepared, and our messaging was, we're going to probably have not the 10,000 that we're going to bring in. We may cut it in half, and that would potentially impact our ability to restore power in the time that we're getting used to. So I think to some extent that is still the case as we are hopefully coming out of the pandemic. But like I said, things could change, and we may see a large scale deployment probably sooner than we think, as we get more vaccinated.
No, it's all great to hear, and obviously I assume that I remember been on the front lines many of times personally, and I remember just seeing these massive sites where you have
Yeah.
just thousands of workers and trucks, and I had an opportunity to meet many of the first responders and the people at FP&L at that time, and it was always like this camaraderie, and everyone got together and had these big meals and everything else. So I got to imagine a lot of that's going to change and be a bit quite different, and at least in the next coming years. Obviously, rise in vaccinations and the rollback of some of these regulations is certainly going to make it a little bit more easier to move around and do those things.
Sure.
So all good things. So let's talk about we talked about the preparation for FP&L. What is the message from FP&L as far as preparing businesses and community associations? What are the, let's say, like top 5 things that you would recommend to a business or community association to do in order to prepare for this year's storm season?
Top 5. Let me see how many I can fill in that list there.
I'd say kind of like 5. It doesn't have to be 5, but what are the what are the top tips?
Got you.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is to listen to your local authorities, right? If you have an evacuation order and you're able to evacuate or otherwise prepare, I would listen to the local governing authorities and follow their guidelines, because different areas may have different expectations. If you're on the beach, as opposed to being in, West Homestead or, in the Redlands or something along those lines, you may have different expectations of what you should be doing in terms of evacuation and preparing for a storm. So I would, number one is listen to local authorities and heed their counsel. The second is that, and I'll back it up a little bit. I've been here, I've lived in Miami South Florida and Miami since 1982. And so I was here, I started college when we went through Hurricane Andrew. That was my first year of college, and I went to FIU. And the restoration time after Hurricane Andrew was, I guess in the industry we use like a 50%. When do we get 50% of the people that were out back on? When we get their power restored? And because the devastation with Andrew, it was many weeks, right? That 50% marker was hit. You fast forward to 2004, 2005 hurricane season, where we had about 4 hurricanes that crisscrossed in one year. We had a lot of impact. After that, we have spent really billions of dollars in hardening and strengthening the grid, replacing poles and replacing a lot of our infrastructure, upgrading a lot of the infrastructure to withstand Category 5 and stronger storms. So that time of restoration decreased to about a week. After Hurricane Irma, it was less than 24 hours before we got 50% of the people that were out back on, right? So having said all that, the second thing I would say is you should still be prepared to be out for a couple of days, because you just never know. Although our overall numbers are good, there could be a situation in your area where you may be out of power. So you need to be able to have a generator or somehow have some backup. I would say I would promote natural gas. Get a natural gas generator from our sister company, Florida City Gas, right? And put yourself in a position to continue to run and provide services for your community if you're a business, or maintain some semblance of normalcy for your residents in your community association. And I'd say probably the third thing I would say is download our app. You talked a little bit about how easy it was for you to get your power on at the home that you purchased. We have a great app that really gives you the best information about answers in terms of outages, when you can potentially expect a restoration to occur. So that app is really the best resource that you have, even to report downed wires. You can take pictures. It really is phenomenal technology that helps us fulfill our goal, which is to get power back on. So those are probably the 3 things that come to mind right now.
I think they're all great, and technology I think is a big focus. You talked about strengthening, fortifying the infrastructure and things like that. It's something I want to ask about, because there's been a lot of talk about alternative energy and what we need to do to strengthen our infrastructure here in the United States. The president has remarked on it many times. Talked about those changes. What, as far as, I guess it's in 2 parts really, is what changes did FP&L make or are anticipating they're going to make in the future, and how does alternative energy sources fit within that?
So we are in the midst of our 30 by 30 plan, which is 30 million solar panels in the state of Florida by 2030. 2030. For years and years, because prior to working here at Florida Power and Light, I worked in the Public Service Commission, the body in Tallahassee that regulates utilities throughout the state. So you always hear from a lot of residents, FPL customers, non-customers, Florida is a sunshine state. Why don't we have more solar here? And a part of it is, there was a movement now that has made solar just far more feasible financially, right? So to right now, we don't have any plans, to the best of my knowledge, to develop more natural gas plants or nuclear or anything along those lines. We are all in on solar and some other green technologies that we're exploring right now in terms of hydrogen power as well. So we're all in on clean energy, and we believe that because I would say part of the benefit of that is we're going to deploy multiple solar sites throughout the state. We have one that's already online here in Miami, which is down south. We're in the process of exploring for another one. And we're talking about 400 acres worth of solar panels. And when you have that distributed system, I think it allows for more redundancy within the grid. And we are attaching batteries. We're actually developing the world's largest battery to be accompanied, and it's going to be sandwiched between two solar plants, right? So that helps with our resiliency, so that when the solar energy, there's a rainy day or cloud passes, whatever it is, at nighttime, that the energy can be drawn down from the battery. So I think that, the deployment of more solar sites, the inclusion of battery as a complement to that system would really help some of the challenges that we may have faced in the past. But, there will always be challenges. A tree, the biggest problem you have is vegetation. I'll just be frank, right? The biggest problem you have is vegetation. So if you have trees in your backyard that are impacting the lines, it's not only just a threat to you, but it's a threat to everyone that runs on that line as well. So, we like situations where we can partner with the customers, partner with the cities, and just come to some type of mutual understanding that it's a mutually beneficial relationship when we clear the lines and keep trees and other items from impacting the lines, which is really the number one cause of outages.
And I think that might have been your fourth tip. So
we'll have 6 or 7 by the time I'm done, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so is clean the lines, and if you got a tree in your backyard, prune the trees. I mean, it's actually a huge thing. I think a lot of community associations and businesses, and as well as homeowners, obviously, it's very important that you look at your vegetation and consider its impact, obviously, not only on your structure, but also obviously the infrastructure and what it can mean for you. I think that's all great news, though, as you talk about these alternative means of other, the battery and things like that, because I got to imagine it's going to improve the recovery time too, in getting things back to, where you're able to charge things, store things. And I've done some research on the solar stuff, particularly because we at times have clients ask us about the installation of solar panels and the use of them on their own properties. And what it always comes back to is affordability. And if there's going to be a return on that investment or not, or is it just really, you can say you're being more green because you have it there, but it's actually really not doing much of anything economically for you. So particularly for pool pumps is, where you see it a lot. I would assume FP&L is a big advocate of those things, and anything less stress on the grid, obviously, and use of power. So, at the local sites.
I think that we are, we think that from a financial perspective, the best way to leverage solar power is through those larger sites, right? 300, 400. And you're a community association. I imagine you have a lot of your clients that are in condo units and maybe apartment complexes. And, that's a small footprint when it comes to really trying to leverage solar, right? You may have 100 units and a small roof. It's not going to work. So we have a program called Solar Together, where people can subscribe. So some of these sites that I'm talking about, where you have, 300,000 solar panels, through our Solar Together program, you as an individual, whether you own your single family home, whether you're renting, whether you own a condo or a townhouse, you can subscribe to this program and literally have like solar panels that fit your needs put aside for your use only. And the idea, so you're getting the benefit of solar, and you're paying a fee, but from day one, that fee gets offset by the actual solar resource that is generated. So for me, my fee is about $51, and there are months where I get $53 worth of solar resource, so it's paying for itself, and sometimes I get $49. But over the course of a few years, it's going to be that benefit will increase, right? You pass that break-even point, and that benefit will get wider and wider. So that is something that everybody can participate in. FPL.com/solar together. It's for businesses. It's well, let me back that up. I know it's open for residences. I think we're about to open it up for businesses, but go there. All the information is there on FPL.com/solar together.
Well, most business owners are homeowners, so anything cost savings they can achieve, I'm sure they will welcome that opportunity. Utility costs and insurance costs and things like that. I mean, we're always looking for ways as consumers to obviously save our hard-earned money. So definitely great information, and we'll make sure that information is available on our website as well, on our social media, because I think that's actually something great. It's something I'm just learning now too, and I'm excited again to have you with us here today to talk about these important issues, because they're definitely impacting our community, and you're giving incredible information that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. If you don't frequent the chambers and you haven't met with your FP&O representatives and heard their discussions, that's why we want to have you on here today to deliver this information directly to our end users and our businesses and our community association clientele and our team, so that they can be more efficient, operate better, make better decisions. It's all about that. You mentioned the website. I want to close out this interview in this 50th episode. Where's the best resource for business owners and community association to get information about FP&L, all the great things that you guys are working on?
So the website, definitely FPL.com. I want it from a business perspective. I want to say it may be /business, but if you just Google FPL.com and space and business, it'll be a good high response there. But for various businesses, you can have, depending on the size of the business, you can have basically a customer service representative assigned to you, right? So depending on the size, depending on the amount of resource that you use, we can try and be, I think that's a way that we're trying to be a little bit more responsive. So a lot of our larger entities are able to leverage that resource. And I will promote the chambers. I think the chambers are a great opportunity for our business customers really to engage with FPL and to learn more and follow us on our social media channels, right? We're on Twitter and Facebook and these things, and they're always trying to promote information on really, particularly if you think about COVID, what we're able to do last year, provide discounts and extend. There was a moratorium on outages and so forth, or disconnections. So we really tried to work with our business customers throughout last year, and that's no different from what we tried to do years before or even now. Is really just trying to make sure that we are a good partner for our businesses, because as you grow, we grow as well.
Well, as you notice, I didn't ask you for a fifth one because I want to have you back on. You're going to give me that fifth one on our next talk. This has been awesome. Thank you, honestly, so much. It's great to have individuals like you, professionals that are active in the community, giving good information you can actually use. You hear a lot of people talk about all kinds of things over and over and over again, and you kind of like shut out to it, and it becomes a little bit exhausting. So, but awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I wish you the best of luck of this storm season, and we will see you in the chamber soon.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. Great. And I'll be happy to come back anytime.
All right. Well, take care. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a little technical problem. I think the computer was getting a little tired, but because it is our 50th episode, we're so excited to be here to continue to deliver information to you that you can actually use as policyholders. But we always want to remind you, we're counting down to 10 years. 10 years here at GlobalPro, protecting the interest of the consumer, advocating on their behalf, making sure that you're getting the information you need is always of top importance for us. We've done it Many of times, thousands of clients have contacted us and allowed us the opportunity to represent them in more than $1 billion in recovery. So you want to make sure that you hit the like button, follow us, like us on all the social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're constantly going to be putting more and more information out there and taking you back to where we started and explaining the entire history and the direction we're going and the future that we see for the insurance industry and the services that we provide here. As we continue to grow as a business, we continue to add additional staff and resources that and it's our goal to provide a better service to you, to making sure that you always have access to insurance information you can use. So tune in next week. We continue on into the 51st episode of the Recovery Report Live. So every week, make sure you tune in. And the best way to make sure you get that reminder is to hit that subscribe button. I'll say it again. So again, thank you all for joining us this week on the Recovery Report Live.